Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the world of foreign exchange. Now, this is a force that, it quietly shapes just about everything, from the big decisions made in corporate boardrooms all the way down to the price you pay for your morning coffee. Have you ever wondered this? You go on vacation one year and your budget feels great. You can stretch it really far. A few years later, you go back to the same spot and not so much. Well, the answer is all in this constant, kind of invisible dance of currency values. And that dance creates ripples that affect all of us in very, very real ways. So, okay, how does this actually hit home for you? Well, when a currency's value shifts, it is not just some number on a screen. It directly changes the price you pay for imported stuff. Your phone, your clothes, you name it. It also changes how much it costs local factories to buy raw materials. And maybe most importantly, it can even impact job security as companies have to decide if it's cheaper to hire at home or move their operations abroad. So here's how we're going to break it all down today. First, we'll get into the major risks that every international business has to deal with. Then we're going to open up the toolkit they use to protect themselves. And finally, we'll try to peer into the crystal ball and talk about the, let's face it, nearly impossible art of forecasting where these markets are going to go next. All right, so let's kick things off with the big picture. Before we get into all the complex tools and the strategies, we really need to nail down exactly why these fluctuating numbers have such a powerful real-world impact. And not just on giant corporations, but on all of us. Now that we've seen the impact, let's get really specific. For any company that operates across borders, this uncertainty isn't some abstract idea. No, it creates very real dangers they have to face every single day. We're going to dig into the three biggest ones. First up, we've got transaction risk. Okay, picture this. You're a US company, and you agree to sell something to a customer in Europe for, say, 1 million euros. Payment is due in 90 days. But what if the euro weakens against the dollar by the time you actually get paid? Well, that 1 million euros is suddenly worth a whole lot fewer dollars. That, in a nutshell, is transaction risk. Next is translation risk, and this one is more of, well, an accounting headache. A company could have a massively profitable branch over in Japan, raking in billions of yen. But when it's time to put together the big corporate earnings report, they have to translate all those yen profits back into dollars. If the yen has gotten weaker in the meantime, that super successful branch can suddenly look way less profitable, at least on paper. And then we have the big one, economic risk. This is not about one deal or one quarterly report. No, this is about a long-term fundamental shift in currency values that can literally change a company's ability to compete. Think about it. If the dollar stays super strong for years and years, it makes American exports consistently more expensive, and that can threaten a company's entire position in a foreign market. So, with all this risk swirling around, how do businesses even begin to fight back? Well, they turn to this powerful arsenal of financial tools designed specifically to manage that risk. Let's start with two of the most popular ones: futures and options. Okay, so a currency future. Think of it like setting a mandatory appointment in your calendar. You agree today to buy or sell a certain amount of a currency at a very specific price on a specific day down the road. And the key word here, the one to remember, is obligation. It doesn't matter if the market moves in your favor or against you, you are locked in. You have to complete that transaction. A currency option, though, is totally different. It's more like buying a safety net. It gives you the right, but, and this is crucial, not the obligation, to make a trade at that pre-agreed price. So it protects you from a bad outcome, but it also lets you just walk away and take advantage of a better price if the market happens to move in your favor. And this really gets us to the fundamental trade-off, right? With a future, you get absolute certainty because you've locked in a rate, but you have zero flexibility. With an option, you get total flexibility and you're protected from losses. But that flexibility, well, it isn't free. It comes with an upfront cost, which is called a premium. Okay, so beyond futures and options, there's another really powerful tool. And this one was actually born from a single, really clever deal between two of the most recognized organizations in the world. It's just incredible how fast a good idea can scale up. The modern swap market, it was pretty much born in 1981 with this one smart deal between IBM and the World Bank. By the 90s, the whole idea had just exploded. And today, it's a multi-trillion-dollar cornerstone of the entire global financial system. So here's the really clever part. In the most common type of swap,
Two companies just agree to exchange the interest rate payments on a loan. That's it. So one company might want the stability of a fixed rate, while the other is okay paying a variable or a floating rate. They just swap these payments. But the actual loan amount, the principal, it never even changes hands. It's just a brilliant way for each company to get exactly the kind of financing they want without having to go out and get a whole new loan. So with all of these sophisticated tools out there, the last piece of the puzzle for any company is trying to figure out which way the market is actually going to go in the first place. But here's the big catch. There's this really powerful theory in finance, the efficient market hypothesis. And it basically says that trying to consistently beat the market is, well, a fool's errand. And why? Because any and all public information, news, economic data, political events, is already baked right into the current price. So if it's nearly impossible, why on earth would anyone bother? Because if you're a massive multinational corporation, you don't have to be perfect. Even a tiny improvement in your forecasting can mean saving millions and millions of dollars when it comes to planning your budgets, making hedging decisions, or even just setting prices in a foreign country. For currencies that float freely, like the dollar or the euro, forecasters basically throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. They do fundamental analysis, where they look at the overall health of an economy. They use technical analysis, studying old price charts for patterns. And they also look at market-based signals to try and get a sense of what everyone else is thinking.
But for fixed or pegged exchange rates, the game is completely different. Here, you're not trying to predict tiny little daily moves. You're basically playing detective, trying to predict one single massive event. The moment a government finally gives up on its peg. You're watching for signs of stress. Are their foreign currency reserves running low? Are politicians starting to sound a little nervous? Is the economic pressure just becoming too much to handle?
So let's bring it all together. Exchange rates are this critical, unavoidable force in global business. They create huge risks, but also huge opportunities. But the good news is, financial markets have developed this really sophisticated toolkit, futures, options, swaps, to manage all that uncertainty. And while nobody has a perfect crystal ball, forecasting is still an absolutely essential part of smart strategic planning. Which leaves us with one final, kind of provocative thought to chew on. In a world where a currency move halfway across the globe can threaten a local business, is the biggest risk of all just doing nothing? Maybe managing this uncertainty isn't just a financial strategy anymore. It's a fundamental requirement for survival.